Well met, dear friends. I hope we're feeling festive this evening. I never used to be all that into Christmas, but I'm going soft in my old age. So look, put the decorations up. See, look, classic Christmas shenanigans. Oh, full thing in his mouth. It's not much, okay, but I did try, and I tried for you. If you'd like to thank me for that great effort, it's a great effort, then there are links in the description where you can do just that. For example, you might want to sign up to become a monthly patron in exchange for perks and eternal gratitude. It is the season of goodwill after all. People have long celebrated this time of year through coming together, sharing and reflecting. Then of course, some people celebrate also for different reasons too. Something about a family needing shelter in a foreign land and being refused, I think. Anyway, one potential downside to Christmas is often having to spend one-on-one time with relatives who might not share the sentiments of charity, sharing and goodwill that Christmas is supposed to promote.
You're right, Auntie Sandra. Are you having a nice Christmas?
Yes, love, I'm just having a break. Catching up with the news. It's terrible what's going on in the channel with those migrants, isn't it? Refugees. And yeah, it is. I'll say though, didn't really expect to hear that coming from you. I know, I care about this. I mean, same. Yeah, there's a lot that needs to be done. It makes you sick, doesn't it? We're one of the most generous countries in the world, and what thanks do we get? Human trafficking gangs bringing in God knows who from who knows where, and now you've got the EU practically inflating the dinghies for them because we've left.
Just funneling them our way because they know we're a soft touch. I agree with what that Julia Hartley-Brewer said last week on Question Time, or was it Nick Ferrari the week before? I mean, we need to stop incentivising this. We need to crack down.
You really think the UK is some global beacon of generosity, don't you? Well, they have it pretty good here compared to most places. That is why they're coming after all. 39 quid a week, that's what they get. 39 quid a week, and accommodation in a property nobody else wants if they're lucky and don't get put in a detention centre or sent straight back or worse. Compared to other EU countries, that's not generous. And those human trafficking gangs that you probably blame for all this, they charge for their services. Pretty sure people aren't paying thousands, risking their lives for 39 quid a week. I wouldn't. Why did you say it like that? Like what? What? who you probably blame for all this, as if human trafficking gangs aren't to blame for literal human trafficking. Mika, this happens all over the world. The simple fact is that people would not be dying in the Channel if human traffickers weren't putting them in dinghies. And of course they're ripping people off, they're criminals doing crimes. Look, if people were truly in need, they would go through the safe and legal channels. Oh yeah, like what? What are these safe and legal channels that they're supposed to be taking instead? I don't know, you apply at an embassy or an airport or something. You know that the UK is currently being condemned from all angles for closing down safe routes. This government has done nothing but make it harder for people to take safer channels. At the time of recording, they still haven't even opened up the resettlement scheme for Afghan people, and now they're trying to push their new nationality and borders bill through Parliament. At the time of recording. And besides, not everywhere just has an easily accessible embassy you can just go to. And if you're fleeing a despotic government who might not want you to flee, then official ports of entry are off limits anyway. You might not have a passport or the means to get to an official port. Human traffickers are filling a need, they're supplying a demand, and Westminster is handing new markets to these criminals as we speak. And while we're on the subject, there is no illegal pathway to claiming asylum under international law. It's perfectly legal to enter a country by any means if you intend on claiming asylum on arrival. No, see, the Dublin Accord isn't a law for refugees. It's supposed to determine which state processes asylum claims. People seem to think that there's some law that says that refugees are supposed to stay in the first country they arrive in, but there isn't. The Dublin thing is a guideline about how EU states should process applications. It imposes no obligation on the refugee themselves. No international law does. And in many ways, the Dublin Accord has again made things worse. You've got countries all over the EU refusing to process applications, camps that were supposed to be temporary processing centres turning into detention centres and slums where people are spending years of their lives. Children are growing up hungry, in danger and depressed, not in a war-torn dictatorship, but on the borders of Europe. Because each country thinks the burden falls on the one next to it. They should stay in the first country they get to, you say. I bet you wouldn't be saying that if the UK was where Greece or Turkey is. Okay, but you can't tell me that the EU isn't using this whole thing to punish us for Brexit. I'm old enough to remember when the threat of refugees being sent here was one of the main rallying calls for Brexit. You remember Farage with his Syrian refugee poster? Oh no, we had to leave, or we might have been forced to care for some of the world's most vulnerable people, but now we're being forced to care for some of the world's most vulnerable people because we left. You really think they're all poor and vulnerable, don't you? If that was the case, they would stay in the first safe country they get to, and they wouldn't be predominantly fit and healthy young men. You're living in cloud cuckoo land if you think that all those blokes that you see standing around with their smartphones are fleeing terror. It makes no sense. Makes perfect sense, Sandra. Do you want me to find more stats? No, stop. There are 26 million refugees globally, according to Amnesty International, and half of them are children. 85% of them stay in developing countries, living in awful conditions. As of last year, the UK was home to just over 130,000 refugees, according to the Migration Policy Institute. That's fewer people than attended Glastonbury Festival. And I'm pretty sure everyone already knows that the UK takes in fewer people than its EU neighbours. Refugees overwhelmingly don't come as far as the UK. And refugee camps aren't safe, secure places where people shouldn't mind staying for a few years. Gangs, violent criminals, human traffickers, they all prey on refugee camps, including the ones in Europe. Not to mention the documented abuse inflicted by state patrols and law enforcement. People in Europe's refugee camps piss in bottles in the nighttime because it's too scary and dangerous to leave their tent at night. It could take months, years even, before someone gets as far as Europe. You're seeing a lot of young men because young men are making that dangerous journey in place of other potentially more vulnerable family members. You seem very well prepared for this conversation, I must say, but you literally just told me that most of them don't come here, so it must be possible for all of them to stay somewhere else, surely. Okay. If you were a refugee, if you had to flee your home because of war or famine or dictator or marauding gangs or whatever, you would leave that country by whatever means possible. Yeah, sure. But once you're out of that country, do you honestly think that you should have no choice as to what you do from there? Should you be detained in a dangerous place for the crime of being a victim? Or would you not feel the right to be somewhere you feel safe, where your kids might be able to have a future, where you potentially already have friends and family and can speak the language? Because it's just a fact that nearly all of the people who choose to claim asylum in the UK over, say, Germany, do so because they either speak English or already have family or social connections in the UK. Isn't that what the people you listen to always say? Like, I'm not anti-immigrants, I just think they should learn our culture. They are literally coming here because they have cultural ties to the UK. And you know, even if it is possible for them all to stay somewhere else, why should they? Why should the UK not take its fair share in a humanitarian emergency? The main reason why refugees from the other side of the world have cultural ties to the UK is because we invaded their country. And here we go, it wouldn't be Christmas without you going on a rant about imperialism now, would it? You started it. How? By complaining about the consequence of imperialism. The British invaded 90% of the countries on Earth. We carved up regions into states to suit our interests. We destroyed democracies and implanted dictators all over the world. No, we do not get to whine about being invaded and all those third world countries not being able to do democracy properly now. We're still doing imperialism today. We're still bombing whole swathes of the world. So when you complain about migrants in the Channel, you're complaining about a consequence of imperialism. Well, if we're so evil, then they wouldn't want to come here, would they? Because we forced them into a position where the UK is their best chance for a future for them and their families. You keep talking about choice, but there's such a thing as meaningful and not meaningful choices. We all have a choice to die. If I complain about capitalism, and the fact that most people are forced to work for others, you could say that I'm choosing to participate. I'm choosing to live with a roof over my head instead of dying in the streets. But it's commonly understood that a choice under such duress does not typically count as a choice. Avoiding death and suffering isn't a choice. Like, it's physically not. It's a thing that all living beings are programmed to do. It's like our brain's main job, to keep the body alive. And so I'd say that you could call decisions to that effect something like human nature. But we're not talking about life or death, are we? Not really. You can't tell me that people would have a much worse time of it in the Netherlands, say, than in the UK. I'm not saying that people should stay in their war-torn countries or whatever. I'm just saying they shouldn't choose to cross the channel, endangering their lives and the lives of everyone else in the busiest shipping lane on the planet. In 2002, 84,000 people applied for asylum in the UK. This year it was 30,000. Fewer people are choosing the UK than before. Out of all the European nations, the UK ranked 14th in terms of number of applications per capita.
Nearly everyone who arrives by boat applies for asylum, and most are accepted. And even if they aren't, the vast majority still stay, as we learned in this exchange.
Can you tell us how many asylum seekers or how many people arriving have been returned to any EU country in the course of the last year or since January?
In this year is 5.
Of the people that do apply here, so the vast majority have provable, objective reasons to be in the UK. Reasons which not even our hard right government can argue with. Or do you think pretty let's keep them on oil rigs Patel is being a soft touch? Do you think the people that brought you Windrush are overly concerned with political correctness? Ah, well, yes, now that was really messed up. Those people were British citizens, though, invited here to help us build our country. Well, what changed? Any study I've seen has showed that all migration bears a net positive. How do you think the great British NHS would fare without the thousands of workers who started their lives elsewhere? Wasn't it a Nigerian surgeon who saved your husband last year? And anyway, talking like this, it's like super entitled. I don't like it. Like, only viewing human beings as deserving of comfort and safety if they do something for us in return. Why is it such a stretch to just value human life? Why does everything have to be transactional? Is nothing just sacred? Not even at Christmas. I value human life. I don't want anyone to die. People should be helped if they need it. But not in my backyard. Mika, you talk as if the UK can do anything, that it's simultaneously this unstoppable evil and also capable of caring for all the world's vulnerable people. We are a small island with a dense population and a lot of problems of our own. Have you been outside lately? Of course I haven't. And then you haven't seen how many people are living on the streets? You haven't seen the lines outside the local food banks? They are British people suffering and struggling every single day, and nobody is helping them. Why should we be trying to save the world when our own people are going hungry? Do you really care, or do you only conveniently care when the subject of refugees comes up? I don't have to spend my Christmas like this, you know. If we're just going to snap at each other, I would rather watch the Queen's speech. Sorry. Yes. People here are suffering. We should do something about that. It's not an either or thing, is it? And anyway, who society deems as deserving of help changes all the time. Think about the discourse surrounding British citizens and welfare in this country. Like, most people that I speak to, I think that people do deserve help if they need it, that the council or whatever should help people who need it. That's like part of why we pay taxes, to provide that safety net. But then there's always a but. People shouldn't take advantage. It should be only for those who really need it. And what's wrong with that? Who really needs it can change depending on who you talk to, what time of year it is, what the papers are feeling like this week, what bills the government need passing now. Did you have a child when you couldn't afford one? Are you undereducated? Did you make mistakes in the past? Do you smoke or drink or, heaven forbid, do a drug? Did you take a job that pays less than others? Did you move out of your parents' home? Do you own a flat screen TV? The standards by which we measure those who are asking for help are impossible. Meanwhile, the people with the power to help, who also live off taxpayer money, by the way, are held to no standards at all, it seems to me. because it would be unfair to unpick a person's past just because they want to be a member of government. But if somebody wants a few quid in benefits each week, well, then we better break out the Spanish Inquisitors. The austerity which causes so much suffering in the UK was a political choice, and it continues to be one. It's a choice for which the UK was condemned by the UN. And the people who would continue to make that choice are the same people who also choose to continue our involvement in wars, imperialism and genocide, who will continue to choose policies that are wrecking our environment, all things which will inevitably lead to refugee crises. You can't trust people who openly support genocidal regimes all over the world to care about homeless people on the steps of their own government buildings. But you can trust them to manipulate their voters into thinking that we simply couldn't possibly do anything about it, or even to blame foreign aid and humanitarianism for their own failings. Where are these great British values? Where's this Blitz spirit we're all so darn proud of? The eagerness to sacrifice for the greater good, to pull together during hard times, to give what you can and only take what you need. Ironic, innit? What? That it couldn't be further away from our current collective consciousness. Not only that, but the people who so strongly cling to that idea of Britishness, they're the ones most likely to embody its antithesis. It's a narrow-viewed, rose-tinted, whitewashed conception that we're not even trying to embody. All right, I was just trying to make some small talk about the news. It's Christmas, a time when people are supposed to come together in goodwill. My point exactly. Glad we can agree on something. So far this year, 43 people have lost their lives trying to cross the Channel, including the 29 who died in November's tragedy. Last year, a refugee camp in Moria, Greece, burned to the ground. It was home to 12,000 people, half of whom were children. Conditions in Europe's refugee camps, which were set up as part of Europe's hotspot approach, intended to be temporary processing centres, have turned into long-term accommodations, described by human rights advocates as hell on earth, and have been compared to prisons. Refugee crises are not going away. In fact, they're only going to get worse. And currently, the UK and EU countries are pulling up the drawbridges. Just recently, the UK government passed their new Nationality and Borders Bill. This has been condemned from all sides for only making the problem worse. It would criminalise refugees for crossing the Channel and give the government the power to send them anywhere else. It would also give the government the power to remove British citizens that have dual nationality of their British citizenship without warning, and would end family reunification, which is widely thought of as a human right. This video is centred on Europe and the UK, but obviously refugee crises are happening all over the world. I've left some links in the sources document to international efforts that you might want to help with. But if you're in the UK, there are some more specific things you can do. Number 1, write to your MP. There is still time to amend the bill. If you have a Tory MP, write to them and say that you don't buy the Home Secretary's nonsense that turning people away is compassionate. Tell them that you believe the Conservative government are handing more business to human trafficking gangs by closing down safe routes. If you have a Labour MP, tell them that you do not believe that Labour are offering effective opposition. They need to be pushing for the opening of more safe routes, and they need to be addressing the imperialistic causes of the crises. Ask them for the opening of more resettlement schemes and the immediate opening of the Afghanistan scheme. Ask for family reunification to be upheld and for travel documents to be provided to people who are travelling to the UK to claim asylum. Number 2, go to demonstrations against the bill. Sign petitions and show support for your local refugee and migrant communities by calling out people like my fictional aunt. Number 3, go to jcwi.org.uk. The Online Council for the Welfare of Immigrants has an online toolkit detailing other ways you can help, as well as a donations page. They also have these posters which you can print and put in your window to signal how you feel. I truly believe that most people are compassionate, that when pressed, most people believe that those who need help should get it. It's just that they are being told day in, day out, that those crossing the channel don't really need it. That for some perverse reason, those people are simply choosing to risk their lives and the lives of their family members for a pittance in benefits in a country which is being openly hostile to them. That's what those people are choosing to do. But you wouldn't do that, would you?
Our top story tonight, as the terrorist rebellion enters another year,
Country's just not safe anymore. We've got to leave.
Yeah, the grave was getting closer.
That's the hospital.
camps have been raided.
They've only got enough of them.
I will find you. You bring when you get back.
I'm not getting on the boat without you. Of May, 2003.
Today, happy birthday. Hope you made a wish. And what are your parents' names? Lily, I know this is hard. Can you tell me your parents' names?
Thank you so much for watching, and please remember to like, subscribe and click on the sources doc below for ways that you can help. Special thanks to my patrons whose names you see now. This video would not be possible if not for them. And if you think I'm making good content, then I'd love it if you joined them. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, come follow me on things, and I will see you next year.